The United States Department of State published on Tuesday, yesterday, right, a video over 5 minutes long on X, reaffirming the Monroe Doctrine and declaring that American dominance in the Western Hemisphere will never be questioned again. Oh, poor thing. In practice, Donald Trump sends a message telling the region's leaders to be submissive, like Javier Milei in Argentina and Flávio Bolsonaro. What does he want to leave behind? And what kind of Brazil does Flávio Bolsonaro want to leave behind? You can put it there. Flávio the vassal, Javier Milei, doormat. That's pretty much it. Meanwhile, in fact, Michele Bolsonaro actually came out with a video supporting Flávio Bolsonaro. Well, at least it was supposed to be a video. It was me. She supported him by roasting him. My God. Exactly that. She made a video supporting Flávio Bolsonaro, but at the same time, she roasted Flávio Bolsonaro. She questioned the choice of the running mate, who is suspected of rape. No, I don't know if he is or if he isn't. I don't know. The police will be the ones to say that, but he's a suspect. There's an ongoing investigation about possible rape of a vulnerable person. Whether he is or not, the police will say, but he's a suspect. She talked about Ciro Gomes again. She also said that Bolsonaro is in jail thanks to Ciro Gomes. Ciro Gomes, who has always been on the left, made an alliance with the PL to see if he can win the Ceará governorship. Then she criticized him too, talking about Ciro Gomes, saying she's against this support from the PL, that she thinks the choice of vice is wrong, that it should have been a woman. And she avoided talking and didn't say anything about Flávio or Eduardo Bolsonaro. She already said that Eduardo Bolsonaro is working against the Bolsonaros with the whole tariff situation and everything, that he's over there in the United States. And she also didn't mention Carlos Bolsonaro. She also said that the two of them are always at each other's throats. Actually, the God, country, and family was always fighting among themselves in there, every man for himself. Now, I think she's thankful to God because she, Bolsonaro, and the collaborators there, and the police watching over Bolsonaro, the sons aren't making their lives hell anymore. I think she's thankful to God. So she showed up making this video saying she's going to support Flávio Bolsonaro, that she'll be with Flávio Bolsonaro, but she threw some jabs. And I think she's also making it very clear that there is no possibility of her being his running mate. Because I've already told you, up until now, Flávio hasn't even registered his candidacy. Because he could have already registered his candidacy and his running mate with the Electoral Court. And he didn't do it. Maybe hoping that Michele would accept being his running mate. And with what she said, she makes it very clear that she won't be his running mate. Do you think so, Andrea? Flávio has until the 15th at 7 p.m. to register. Do you think he'll give up, Andrea? No way. Do you think so, Andrea? I don't know either, because he'll lose his parliamentary immunity after he loses, and then he'll go straight to jail. Look here. Michele once again blows up Flávio's candidacy by talking about the running mate accused of rape. Alfredo's selection happens amid criticism from opponents and the case taken to the federal police. She, Michele, says she has put the matter to rest with Flávio and reveals a preference for a female running mate. She harshly criticized the alliance with Ciro Gomes and avoided talking about Carlos Bolsonaro and Eduardo Bananinha, traitors to the country. She's supporting it now. Yeah, it's a lot of cynicism, right, guys? Just like Sergio Moro, who is now with the PL2 and is close with Flávio. Even though he said back then, when he was Bolsonaro's Minister of Justice, that he was leaving the position of Minister of Justice under Bolsonaro because Bolsonaro was interfering in the federal police to protect his son from the Rachadinha investigation. He protected Flávio. And now Sergio Moro is close with Flávio. And And now Micheka also had to swallow her pride because she was mistreated. According to her, she said she was mistreated by this and that because of Flavio. And now too, look, what won't these people do for power, right, guys? Wow, wow, wow. And meanwhile, there's a lot of confusing talk going on, trying to attack Minister Alexandre de Moraes and Flavio Gino. And I have to clarify this situation because they are distorting what's happening. And Flavio Bolsonaro, obviously, who took advantage of this to try to turn the Brazilian press against Minister Alexandre de Moraes and Flavio Dino as well. Exactly that. And I keep thinking about the wickedness of many people because a lot of people know what I'm going to explain here. Flavio, if he's a lawyer, he knows. But there are a lot of people who want the spotlight and attention because it's easier to criticize than to praise. Isn't that true? That's right. Oh my God. Look here. The journalist Luis Pablo published in November 2025 a report saying that the car paid for by the Maranhão Court of Justice was used by Gino and his family in Maranhão. According to the publication, the vehicle, the Toyota SW4, was intended for the official use of appellate judges for private travel. The report is no longer available. This Luis Pablo, a journalist, has a blog and he made a bombshell post saying that Minister Flavio Gino, along with his family, was using official vehicles for private matters. So you ask, was he or wasn't he, Andrea? Flavio Dino said that his family used their own private vehicles, that this is a lie. And that, in fact, a vehicle was used by Flavio Dino and his family, which was even armored, provided by the public security of the federal police. Why, Andrea? Because Flavio Dino was being followed, persecuted, and cursed. And even today, it still happens in many situations, and his family too. So the federal police recommended that he and his family use this car, which was even bulletproof. And there was even an opinion from the Prosecutor General's office saying this is necessary. Then, this journalist here published the information while misrepresenting the case. Then, Minister Alexandre de Moraes ordered a search and seizure against this journalist because the journalist has the right to protect their sources. Who gave this information to Pablo? To the journalist. He has the right not to say who gave him this information, which was misleading information, unless he already knew it was misleading and published it anyway. And there is even suspicion that he received 100,000 reais to publish this false information about Minister Flavio Gino and his family. So what happened then? There were searches and seizures related to him and so on, ordered by Minister Alexandre de Moraes. He was summoned to testify at the federal police, and at the federal police, he decided to remain silent and not reveal who his source was. That's fine. He has the right to protect his source. That's not a problem. He wasn't forced to speak or anything because he has that right. But this right he has doesn't take away the federal police's right to investigate who his source was. The source could have provided misleading information, false information, and in a very sensitive situation of threat, coercion, and persecution against Flavio Dino and his family. So the federal police kept investigating, and they found out who the source was. It was the journalist's source. Then, many media outlets and Flavio Bolsonaro are saying that Alexandre de Moraes is violating the journalist's right to protect their source. That's a lie. The journalist, I'll repeat, the journalist has the right to protect their source. This right does not prevent the police authorities from investigating a source, especially if they are committing a crime. Do you understand? One thing is the right to protect the source which is being preserved. And another thing is something else, which is the power and duty of the authorities to investigate anyone, including a source, if they are committing crimes or if they have committed crimes. And the police found out who the journalist's source was. Look, E. Oh my God. Today is Switzerland. Let's follow the itinerary here. Here. In March 2026, Alexandre de Moraes authorized a federal police operation against the journalist Luis Pablo. At the time, cell phones and computers used by the journalist were seized. The minister's decision pointed to suspicions of illegal monitoring of Dino's security and ordered an analysis of the collected material. On March 13, the journalist gave a statement and chose to exercise his constitutional right to remain silent. In other words, he was not required to reveal the source of his information. Then Flávio Bolsonaro's press office just responded and said the press office of Minister Flávio Dino, in the face of repeated falsehoods, they stated that there was never any irregular use of official vehicles from the Maranhão Court of Justice. The armored car was provided at the request of the Security Department of the Supreme Federal Court as part of a cooperation agreement currently in effect with all the courts in the country. The advisory team cannot disclose security details about the minister and his family, especially because he is constantly targeted by attacks and threats, as is publicly known. In this regard, recent investigations show that even the private vehicles of the minister and his family were monitored and followed. The advisory team does not have any other information, considering that the proceedings are under seal. In light of new developments, the office has already requested additional security measures for the minister and his family. Also of this nature, the federal police discovered the journalist's source. It's this gentleman here, former federal police officer and opponent. He has always been a political opponent of Flávio Dino there in Maranhão. Let's go here. Justice of the Supreme Federal Court, Alexandre de Moraes, ordered the execution of a search and seizure warrant against the former State Secretary of Maranhão, Raimundo Putrim. This Tuesday, yesterday, he is identified as the source of journalist Luis Pablo, who publishes the Luis Pablo blog. In reports about the use of official cars by relatives of Minister Flávio Dino as well. So the federal police discovered the source through the investigation, and they could and should do that because he may have committed crimes. He's a former federal police officer. And given his background, Flávio Dino even fears for his life. There are no saints in this story. And obviously, Flávio Bolsonaro took advantage of it. Flávio criticizes Moraes after a search and seizure action against the journalist's source. The senator defended source confidentiality and classified Alexandra de Moraes' decision as a threat to press freedom. Flávio is taking advantage of this disinformation situation because so far, I haven't seen anyone explain it the way I'm explaining it to you here. The journalist has the right to protect their sources, period. But that does not remove the police's duty and authority to investigate if the source has committed crimes. The police should go after the source, not by forcing the journalist to talk, but by finding out through their own means, which is their duty, in fact. Then Flavio continues and says, I think there has to be a moment of unity from the press itself against this kind of abuse, of illegality and arbitrariness, declared the presidential candidate. Flavio took advantage of the situation to incite the press in Brazil, notably against Justice Alexandre de Moraes. And if Flavio is a lawyer, he knows what I'm talking about here. But I noticed such a huge wave of misinformation, even from many journalists and even from lawyers. If you don't know what I'm saying, you should stay quiet. The confidentiality of a journalist's source does not remove the police's duty and authority to investigate if the source is committing crimes. And this source, look here. The former secretary has also faced an accusation of involvement in homicide, a fact that he vehemently denies. And allies of Flávio Dino stated that the vehicle used by the minister was private and was being followed, refuting the claim that official cars were being used. Flávio Dino's family's private cars were being followed. That was when the federal police and the Supreme Federal Court Police recommended that Flávio Dino and his family start using cars, armored public vehicles, because the threat was real. And this one is from political opponents. The source is from Flávio Dino's political opponents in Maranhão, which can even be from those who were threatening and following Flávio Dino, as well as having paid 100,000 reais for the journalists to publish false, untrue information. And that's what the police are investigating. And that's why the police tracked down the journalist's source. Your right as a journalist to protect your source does not take away the safety and the right of others to know and investigate the source. If a crime is being committed, what you have as a journalist is the right to remain silent and not reveal your source, and not be penalized for that. One thing is one thing, another thing is another thing. Then you say, Andrew, you're being redundant. Redundancy is necessary. In the face of so much misinformation, in the face of so many attacks, mainly trying to target Minister Alexandre de Moraes and Minister Flávio Dino, who bothers and really annoys a lot of people, we have to explain everything in detail, almost spell it out for them. Because what you see most on social media and in the mainstream media about this situation is misinformation and a lack of knowledge. In some quarters, bad faith. Right, Flávio Bolsonaro? Bolsonaro. Here it is, look. Flávio journalist allegedly requested the amount of 100,000 for the publication of the reports. All of this is being investigated by the federal police. And don't be surprised if we uncover even more complicated situations behind all of this. Don't be surprised. And we're going to follow this closely, step by step, because I want to know how this will turn out. All right? Put it up. Shut down. That's the guy. Flávio Dino is huge. Tete tete. And their brilliance bothers people. It especially bothers a lot of criminals and all the coup plotters. And isn't that right? It's true. Meanwhile, have you liked the live stream yet? Oh my! Oh, Jesus! Hit that like button. Smash the like for God's sake. Don't leave me talking to myself. Don't leave me talking by myself. And leave your comment too. Yeah. Hey, look. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Don't be a liar. Trump's collapse. Disapproval of the President of the United States hits a record high, says The Economist. A survey shows that 61% of Americans reject the Republican government. War with Iran and gas at $4 are eroding popularity and threatening the conservative base. It was already at 66% disapproval. It was already at 66% disapproval of Donald Junk over there in the United States. Donald Junk. Donald could be re-elected, and Donald Junk won't even be able to get his successor elected. Who's going to win the next one, the one in 2 years? The presidency of the United States. It's going to be a Democrat. Then you see those Bolsonaro supporters who are hiding out there. Alan Alando Santos, Paulo Figueiredo, Flávio Bolsonaro, Alexandre Ramagem. Then you'll see those people running around like headless chickens, lost, looking for a place to hide. Then you'll see. That's why these people are desperate. That's why they have to elect Flávio. Because they elected Flávio, then they stage a coup, then they all go back to Brazil because they know they don't have much time left in the United States anymore. Because in 2 years, there will be an election there, and this one won't even be able to elect his own successor. A Democrat will win and will put these little criminals, coup plotters, little coup plotters, Bolsonaristas, who are there protected by the government here. Donald Trump's fascists will be sent running. Where will they run to? That's why they want to do it. Anyway, to stage a coup and see if they can get Flávio and Bolsonaro as president, so they have a way to come back to Brazil. Because over there in the United States, the Republicans are not going to win. Thanks to the dirty tricks and crap Donald Trash is pulling. Each one is worse than the last. 25 governors have taken legal action against Donald Trump, guys. Because the high tariffs are hurting merchants and business owners there in the United States. It's not just hurting us, it's hurting them too. But why is Donald Trump doing this? To try to sabotage President Lula's government, to try to blackmail President Lula, to see if Lula lowers his voice, to see if Lula becomes a doormat, like Eduardo Bolsonaro, like Flávio Bolsonaro, and kisses Donald Trump's boots and gives him everything he wants. And Lula is not going to do that because what Lula is doing is managing to open more markets for Brazil. It's what I always tell you. If you don't want it, there are others who do. The United States doesn't want it. China does. Canada does. Other countries do. Got it? That's it. And the owner of the junk is there. And not a stubborn fool either. And he's just getting hit from all sides. And I'll repeat. In November, there will be elections there for the House of Representatives and the Senate. And he's going to lose the majority in Congress. He's going to lose the Republican majority. As a consequence, he'll lose power and will have to hang on. In the presidency, because they're going to come down hard on him. So while he's worried about Brazil, wanting to steal from Brazil like he's stealing from Venezuela, he's losing power at home. It's that old story, right? You want to mind your neighbor's business, but you don't even mind your own. You want to keep an eye on your neighbor's house and tell them how to run it while yours is falling apart, Do you get it? Then when you realize it, your neighbor is doing just fine, thank you, and your house is in ruins. That's what's happening with the Trump administration. He doesn't even take care of his own house, and he wants to take care of ours? Give me a break. Throw that trash out. And just to repeat, right, we have to be redundant, Lula Tetra. Master, Galípolo didn't trust Campos Neto's directors at the central bank, says Aquino. who talks about leaks. Director of Supervision, Ailton de Aquino. Later, in the federal police investigation about bribe payments to Bellini Santana and Paulo Sérgio, who were direct advisors. Right there, under Campos Neto, from Campos Neto's administration, who were part of the militia, Daniel Vocaro's group. That's right. From the central bank directors, then the federal police. And he said they didn't trust Campos Neto's directors. These two directors have already been subject to search and seizure. They were removed from their positions, and according to Aquino himself, they leaked information to Daniel Vocaro. During Campos Neto's administration. Look here. Appointed by Lula. The head of supervision at the central bank, Ailton de Aquino, stated in a statement to the federal police on May 25th that both he, as well as the president of the institution, Gabriel Galípolo, emphasizing that Galípolo was appointed as president of the central bank by Lula, in place of Campos Neto. He removed Campos Neto and appointed Galípolo. Then he says this here, look, that they didn't trust. They didn't trust Bellini, Santana, and Paulo Sérgio, directors from the previous administration of Roberto Campos Neto. And he pointed out a pattern of systematic leaks to Daniel Vocaro during the liquidation process of Banco Master. And I ask you, didn't Campos Neto know about this? Didn't Campos Neto see this? He heard and allowed the leaks of confidential central bank information to Daniel Vocaro during his administration. My dear Campos Neto, president of the central bank, authorized Banco Master to operate as Banco Master. And there were a series of complaints being made against Banco Master to the central bank. And Campos Neto let it happen. And the Banco Master fraud was running rampant all over Brazil. It only stopped when Lula removed Campos Neto and put Galípolo in. Then Galípolo, the first thing he did, appointed by Lula, declared the liquidation of Banco Master. It's over. You won't be able to do business with anyone else. It's over. Wait. You will have to start paying the people you owe money to. I ask you, didn't Campos Neto see any of this? At the very least, he committed dereliction of duty. Because there's just no way, guys. Everyone, the press was already talking about the collapse of Banco Master, about the fraud at Banco Master. Then, to make things even worse, there was that situation with Banco Master buying Banco BRB. More than 12 billion from BRB. In fact, BRB was going to invest in Banco Master. BRB, the public bank of the Federal District of Bolsonaro and Cibanis Rocha. And everyone knew that Banco Master was struggling with lots of allegations. And even so, Campos Neto kept letting things get out of hand and allowed the money from Daniel Alvoca's mafia's corruption to flow. So much so that now there's a mess over there. There's even a fight in the judiciary between BRB and the federal government, I don't know what, to figure out who's going to pay the bill because it's billions in losses. So, then you say, no, Andrea, but if Campos Neto really isn't involved in anything, Andrea, if he's not involved in anything, if he didn't neglect his duties, if he wasn't negligent, or if he didn't directly participate in the Banco Master fraud, do you know what he is? One of the most incompetent people in Bolsonaro's government. Incompetent, lenient, who didn't know anything about what was happening there at the central bank. And he had the duty to know. If he didn't directly participate in the Banco Master fraud, He is extremely incompetent. Everything happened right under his nose, under his mustache, and he didn't know anything. He didn't do anything. He did nothing. You own a company. Or maybe you are the CEO of the company, the president of a company. You're telling me you don't know what's happening in your own company? All that theft is happening right under your nose, right under your mustache, and you don't know anything about it. I know you believe in Santa Claus, right? Then, when I look a little to the side and I see that Daniel Volcaro, through Fabiano Zettel, was the biggest donor to Bolsonaro's campaign in 2022. Fabiano Zettel, financial agent for Daniel Volcaro, who is in prison. Daniel Volcaro is in prison. He was the biggest donor to Bolsonaro's campaign in 2022. 3 million reais. What was this group's interest in having Bolsonaro re-elected? To the point of taking as individuals from their own pockets 3 million and injecting it into Bolsonaro's election campaign. That's what was declared. Officially, it's there with the Superior Electoral Court, just like in Tarcísio's campaign. 2 million. He was also the biggest donor. What was the motive? Maintaining the scheme. If Bolsonaro had been re-elected, that has to be it. Then suddenly I look to the other side. And Flávio Bolsonaro demanding millions and millions of reais from Daniel Volcaro, even though Flávio said he didn't even know Daniel Volcaro. And Flávio doesn't ask, he demands millions of reais from Daniel Volcaro. And everything falls apart. And we find out that Daniel Volcaro transferred 61 million reais to the movie made by Bolsonaro's stooge. And to this day, they still haven't provided an accounting showing whether the money really went to the movie. Because up until now, the money went to a fund in Texas where Flávio lives. And the administrator of the fund, which is an investment account, is managed by Eduardo Bolsonaro's lawyer. And Eduardo Bolsonaro, in March of last year, leaves his position as a federal deputy with a salary of almost 50,000 reais and goes off to starve in the United States with no money, no job, nothing. Starve? He's living in a 6 million reais house. Where, Andrea? Coincidentally, in Texas. Where did the money go? From the movie, which they still haven't accounted for to this day. Haha. My darlings, see, we just can't believe it, right? See, there's something going on here, and it's big. Gordo. And with a lot of cash. Oh, hey! Eduardo Bolsonaro went to a gun store. And he bought one. A 12-gauge shotgun, a Glock pistol, and an AR-15. By the way, all his accounts are blocked. They are blocked. He bought it with cash, right? Who's paying the bill? I think you already have the answer. The one who's paying their share. That's why they were interested in having Bolsonaro re-elected, because the scheme would continue. Since Bolsonaro couldn't manage to get re-elected, being so incompetent, cruel, and inhumane, now they've created a bunch of schemes, including the Pangare movie, to receive payment from Daniel Volcaro. It seems that's what it is. Because up until now, they haven't accounted for it. Or maybe I'm crazy. No. Maybe I'm the one who's crazy. Right? Maybe I'm the one who's the problem. Take that sweet talk to the herd somewhere else, devil. Back off, devil. Not here. Not here. See? See? Gang, hey. Former Air Force commander reveals Bolsonaro pressured for a coup. 2 yellow cards. The former commander also reports having spoken directly to having told the then president directly that he would not remain in office after January 1, 2023, the date of Lula's inauguration. Well, this is Brigadier Batista Jr., commander of the Air Force during Bolsonaro's government. Bolsonaro. He wrote a book. Here it is. His book is coming out now. Look. This one here, Eu Disse Não, a bulwark against coups. He wrote this book and he already said that Bolsonaro tried to pressure him in every possible way for him to join the coup plot, and he said no. Bolsonaro even told him, look, I'm already giving you the second yellow card. In other words, on the third one, you're out. And he said, no, I'm not going to take part in a coup meeting. I don't want anything to do with a coup draft. No, no, I'm not even going to look at it. Yeah, it's all written down here. Look, it's all in the book. I'm going to read this book and I'll bring some excerpts for you all later. See, my dear, my darling? Yeah, that's good. We have to read. Former Air Force commander reveals Bolsonaro's pressure for a coup. 2 yellow cards. The former commander also reports having told the then president directly that he would not remain in office as of January 1st, 2023, the date of the inauguration. That's right. Then there are people who want to sell the idea that Bolsonaro is a poor, miserable guy. If he had carried out a coup, if it had actually happened, because he did try, if it had actually happened, the ones in trouble would be you and me. And that's just the way things are, but not. Thank you very much. Yeah, we would be living under a dictatorship in Brazil. So there's nothing saintly about it, no. There's nothing poor, pitiful, or persecuted about it, no. You see, these people are dangerous and we have to be careful. Because there are many coup plotters who haven't been held accountable. And impunity has the power to create more organized and more violent groups for a new coup attempt. And there are people everywhere, federal police, military, National Congress, who are all coup plotters. And all of this, why? Because it's a left-wing government that serves the poorest, that tries to take from the budget to help those who need it most, that understands that helping the most vulnerable is not a debt, it's an investment in Brazil for its growth. And they don't want that. They want surplus value and everything for themselves. They want the budget to be just for them, for benefits, subsidies, tax credit forgiveness, tax exemptions for the big crowd. Actually, not the big crowd, the little elite group that runs this country and keeps running it. But Lula gets in the way of that. And that's why they want to bring Lula down. Did you get the message? Get the code. Get the code and enter Lula, 4-time champion. Cry about it. And maybe even in the first round. 9:30 and 1:30. I'm here with you. And 4:30 as well. At 8 p.m. on the Andre Gonçalves on Air channel. And at 10 p.m. on The Last News with Andre Gonçalves. All the links are in the first comment. Kiss, kiss, and bye-bye. Lula, 4-time champion. Didn't like it? Go screw yourself.